Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. I see some familiar names. Good morning, welcome. Let's see, I see Klashonda, Maria. Those are some of the names I recognize from our other coffee conversations and parent cafes. Jennifer, Tammy's on. Hi, Tammy. All right, so today we are doing coffee conversations. We are going to be focused on financial literacy, specifically financial vitality. I know every time we do these, we usually take a vitality factor. Last week we did physical vitality and we did some yoga. Everyone seemed to enjoy that.
Quick tech thing.
Let's see, give us one sec. We are gonna stop sharing our screen for 1 second. Let's see. I think we're having some. There we go. All right, we are back on. Sorry, y'all. Okay, so this week we are going to be focused on financial vitality. We're going to talk a little bit about the ABCs of wealth and what that is, and we have a special guest on today. We have our friends over at Mind Treasures, and we have Alex who's going to talk to us a little bit about what this is. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Stephanie. I'm the Parent Support Services Coordinator here at Crystal Stairs. And we also have Isaac on, and I will let him introduce himself, and he will take us through a quick Zoom overview.
Yes. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's good to have you here. I know we're going to be discussing some financial literacy and learning some really valuable information, which Alex will be presenting today. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. For the purposes of today's Zoom meeting, I know that some of you, this may be your first time on Zoom, and so we just like to give just a quick brief run through of how you interact with today's workshop. So for the purposes of today, we're going to just be respectful of those that are speaking here, using respectful tones and just asking authentic questions. How you can interact with us today is through, if you're on a device like a cell phone, you can tap your screen and it will bring up your doc. If you're on a computer, you can move your cursor and it'll bring up your Zoom doc. You'll see at the bottom there your mic and the video icon. For the purposes of this meeting, we're gonna have the audio channel clear just for the speakers to present the information so that it's clear, it's audible, and we're not talking over one another. So we have your audio removed from today's workshop. However, you can show your video. So we'd love to see your face. We'd love to interact with you as close as we can. We know we're in the midst of COVID, COVID-19, and we have to keep this distance. So toggle your video on. We'd love to interact as close as we can by seeing you. Then you'll see in the middle of your doc a few things that you can interact with, mainly the chat feature and the emote feature. Chat's going to be the best way to interact with us. If you have a question about something we've presented, sometimes we will present some information or ask you something. Alex may ask you a few questions, and then he'll refer you to answer in the chat feature. So feel free to use that. You'll notice too that you'll have the option to speak to everyone. If you click on that to section, you can go to everyone. That's going to be the best way so that all of our questions can be seen by everyone. And I'll even just say right now, hello world. You should see my chat there in the feature in the chat section. So communicate with us there if you have any questions, thoughts, and if we say anything particularly awesome or that you like, give us an emote on the reactions page. Give us a clap or maybe a thumbs up, just letting us know that you vibe with a particular subject, or Alex said something that just is meaningful to you. It lets us know that we're on track, that we're engaging with you in a meaningful way. Lastly, just thanks again. This virtual workshop has been something that we've Stephanie and I have been excited about to get Alex here and to engage with you. So I will give it back to Stephanie and Alex. Thank you so much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Isaac. Let's see. I think I want to say we have some other tech tips. I think Isaac talked a little bit about if we're not talking, we'll put you all on mute. Technology sometimes is wacky, so if for any reason you get disconnected, just feel free to log back on and we'll be here. We have until about noon today. And then we don't have any breaks scheduled throughout the hour, so if you guys need to go to the bathroom or just step away for any other reason, feel free to just step away and come back and join us when you're ready. You can turn off your video if you choose to do that also.
Yeah, don't bring the Zoom into the bathroom. That's always a bad idea.
All right, awesome. I think somebody was trying to chat with everyone, and I went ahead and changed to that feature because I think participants were only able to chat with hosts, so I made it so that everyone can chat with everyone. We'll talk a little bit about some agreements for today. You all know, or those of you who've joined us before, that we like to start with these just to kind of guide our conversation, make sure that we all are respecting each other and not judging. Today we're talking about a very touchy subject, at least for some people. So we want to make sure that we're respectful of that and keep these conversations confidential and speak from your own experiences, just because sometimes what works for us wouldn't possibly work for someone else. So let's just speak from our own experiences for today. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump in and talk a little bit about what financial vitality is. Oh, whoops. All right, so financial vitality, when we think about finances, it's really about how secure we feel in our capacity to meet our needs in the material world and outside of the material world. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I think that sometimes we just think about materialistic items, but there might be a little bit more to that, and we'll find that out today. How we build our financial security by understanding kind of like our stressors in our lives and relationships and what we really spend money on, how we budget and how we plan, our attitudes regarding finances and kind of where they come from. When we were prepping for this, I started thinking about like, why do I think that way? Because I know I personally, I'm like, oh, I don't really like to talk about that with like my friends, or, you know, if somebody's like, oh, hey, I got lunch, I'm like, oh no, I'm not even gonna ask them for it, you know, to pay me back for lunch. I just don't like talking about it. And so I started thinking about like, where does that come from? Is it the way we're raised? Is it, you know, kind of our society or our place in societies, things like that. So we'll talk about that today. And then how we teach our child or our children about values and money. And with that being said, I'll hand it over to Alex. I'll stop sharing my screen and he'll talk us through a little bit about what the ABCs of wealth are.
All right.
And I'll let you introduce yourself, Alex, because I think we skipped over you.
It's okay, no problem. I'm always skipped over. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be in your home. This is one of the benefits of Zoom, is that we get to go home visit our friends all around the world. So Stephanie, a question: does the bathroom break apply to me also or not? Because I usually need it a lot of times.
Oh, I don't know, Alex.
I'm excused from that. Huh? Okay, that's not fair. All right, I'll try to hold myself. But again, thank you so much. I usually like to start by bragging about our Southern California weather because we are presenting different parts of the U.S. but I don't think I can do that today. I believe everyone is because I'm in San Diego, so there's no bragging about that. A little bit about Mind Treasures itself. My wife and I are founders of the program.
Hey, Alex, really quick. Your audio is coming out a little shaky. Would you mind toggling your audio off and then back on?
Okay, let me try a different. How's this? Is this any better?
Much better.
Better? Okay, all right, that's interesting. All right. As I was saying, my wife and I are the founders of the program 15 years ago. It was initially she wanted to become healthy. Our idea. Then quite worked out that way. We realized that we couldn't just concentrate on material and monetary aspects of.
I'm sorry, Alex, it's doing it again. Can you try disconnecting your audio? Is there any way that you could do that?
Is that any better? Is still having problem?
It's sounding all right now. I'm just afraid it's gonna
all right.
come back.
I wonder why. Just let me know whenever it goes back. I'll try to be as close as possible to the microphone. Is that good?
That's good.
Okay. All right. Anyway, when we started the program, we quickly realized that our financial affairs cannot be just limited to monetary aspects of life. We have to look at the psychological, the emotional, and other aspects of finances. And we were very fortunate that back in 2006, when we started, our younger son, our older son started kindergarten, and instead of concentrating on adults, we began with teaching in children. Are we good?
It's still cutting off. I wonder, do you have a phone that you can call in? Usually it's pretty clear if you use the mobile feature to call in.
I can do that, and I can have the headsets in there. Let me get the headsets on.
Gotta love it when technology gives you a curveball, right, guys?
Usually I work home with my computer is used to the home office rather than the actual office. Today is the only one of the first times that I've come to the office. Let me see.
All right.
Dialing in. I'm gonna mute this one. Okay. How is this? Is this better?
Oh, now we can't hear you.
I think you're just on mute, Alex.
I'm trying to mute one.
Oh.
Okay. Why? Okay. Nope. Okay. How can you hear me now?
That's great.
Now? Okay. All right. Finally, we got the. Okay. Is everything good now?
I think that's
perfect. Okay. Let me later. Now I got this thing on the screen. That won't go away. Or. Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
You're good? All right. So, lost my train of thought, but that's okay.
But we don't see you.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, Isaac fixed it. We can see you now and hear you.
Okay. All right, later. Let me just take this one. All right. All right. I think we'll skip the introduction. Let's just jump in here. Financial literacy or financial education. It is something that not many of us have thought about it throughout our lives, but it's such an important aspect of our life. We definitely need to be paying a lot of attention to it. So throughout this 45 minutes, we will be having a conversation. I usually don't like to be just the only person who's speaking in there. And as Stephanie and Isaac mentioned, our communication is going to be through the chat. So they had posted several questions in there. I'm going to share my screen because that way we can actually, I can set up my chat and everything. Then I don't have to worry about it later on.
And there were the first questions we put on the chat, but I went ahead and put them up again.
Okay, repost it. Okay. All right, perfect. So those questions are there. Do you keep track of your income and expenses on a regular basis? It could be on anything, on a piece of paper. Different people do different things. It could be a spreadsheet. It could be an app. There are many things. So if we can put in there just to see how is it, have you been paying attention to our finances? because it is something that, again, it's not something that we are born with. That's one of the characteristics or habits that we are not born with, that we need to develop over our time. So while you're doing that, there are other certain questions that, okay, Kiki says on a spreadsheet, that's great. We will be looking at some of the characteristics that we're all born with, and see how they play a role in our finances. Hazel says on an application, that's perfect in there. So traditionally, and most of the programs that do address financial literacy, they only concentrate on the technical aspects of finances, such as banking services, credit, budgeting, let's see, setting goals, all kinds of this stuff. But as we said, we have brought into new dimensions into the program, which is basically the character development, that we have to develop these characteristics that we all are born with. That's one of the questions that we normally ask, but we don't need to put it on. I usually like to, I'll just put it in here. Are we born rich? So I'd like you to think about it. There are many different answers. There's no right or wrong answer in there. So I want you to think about, are we born rich? And not necessarily just in the material aspects of life, because there are a lot of other things that we could be possibly born rich with. So as I said, Stephanie and Isaac, if you can have your microphones open, I like to have a dialogue in here, so it's not, again, just me talking about. So Stephanie, what do you think? Do you feel like you were born rich?
You know, I feel like there's different interpretations of that. I feel like it, like you mentioned, it's not just all about finances. Like, obviously we don't come out and we have $1 million, right? But I think, you know, what else does that mean for us? Like, do we have health and our family and things that are important to us, and other areas that might make us rich, you know? And then obviously as we grow older, then we begin to develop these areas more. I know somebody in the comments, Kiki, mentioned rich in health, rich in love, blessed.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. So, and that those are all the things that we need to consider when we think about our material aspects of our finances, even though that we may not see it as related, but they are totally related. We will also see that our financial life, often people think about that we need to teach our children and youth probably by the time before they graduate and go to college, during high school, they need to be taught how to manage their finances. And our idea is that our finances actually starts at the points of conception in the mother's womb, and there's really no end to it. It can last through eternity. That's another new concept that we have brought into finances. And we will see how learning about banking services, setting goals, becoming financially independent, investments, and all of those play a role in here. So I want to get into what we really think that we are born rich with. So this is the, as Stephanie mentioned, we have put together this curriculum. I'll just share part of it in here, called ABCs of Wealth, which addresses all the different topics that we talked about. We've been doing this curriculum in particularly elementary schools. We start from grade 3. Mainly, we've been doing it before COVID-19. We were mainly doing it in the elementary schools here in San Diego, with some locations outside of San Diego and also outside of the US. So our idea is that in order for us to have a safe and sound financial life, we need to be developing some of these characteristics, and we'll see where they come from and what they do. So these are, each one of these is a lesson plan that we present. We present a program either via printed workbooks in the schools, or since most of the schools have access to computers and internet, we use these online workbooks. So I'm jumping back in here. Our idea is that we are all born rich, and it's not we were born rich. We are all born rich because the richness that we have is something that's within us. I'm going to read these two quotes. It says, "Regard man as a mind rich in gems of inestimable value. Education alone can cause it to reveal its treasures and enable mankind to benefit therefrom." And then another quote, "Just as treasures are uncovered from the earth, so virtue appears from good deeds, and wisdom appears from a pure and peaceful mind. To walk safely through the maze of human life, one needs the light of wisdom and the guidance of virtues. So these virtues are what we believe, and many people believe that we are all born with these. So Isaac, I have a question for you if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
These
what
are
you got
just
for me?
these are just a small set of virtues that we possess.
Mhm.
Do you think everyone has the capacity to be loving?
I think everyone has the capacity for it, yes.
Okay. Does everyone have the capacity to be courageous?
Yes.
Except me. I'm afraid of heights. I cannot even jump off seriously, when I go to a pool and there's a 3-foot diving board, I cannot jump off of it. But the capacity is definitely there. Would
Mhm.
you say that every single human being has all of these capacities, all these character traits that are listed in here?
Yeah, I think all of it, everyone has the capacity for all of that. It's a matter of degrees of comfortability with all those
Mm-hmm.
things
Yeah,
and how
exactly.
easily they come.
So the next question in the chat is that, what do you think? What do the audience think? Do you think that we are born with these character traits, and these are gems, these are the treasures? Now, Stephanie, I'm going to ask you a question. We know that these capacities are all within us, but is everyone a honest person?
Mm. Yeah, I think that varies from person to person. And also, like, what does honesty mean for? I think we each can have different definitions of all of these character traits and what that means for us. So yeah, just because, you know, you might say, oh, courage for me is being able to jump off a high cliff. Somebody else, it's like courage for me was getting up and, you know, going to the market where there's thousands of people in the middle of COVID-19, right? So
Yep,
it's dependent.
that's that. Yep, that's definitely true. Yeah, definitely courage. I mean, I've been doing this program for 15 years, as I mentioned, but whenever there's a new group like this one, just before we started, my heart was pumping. It's like, why is my heart pumping? It's nothing new. I'm not presenting anything new. We've been doing this for so long, but I guess I still get nervous, and it takes courage to do this. And like honesty is actually something that it's very static. It's like honesty, and this is what we present to our students, is that are we honest whenever it's appropriate, when it's to our benefit, or no? Is honesty and truthfulness is 100% of time at all times, and that, so those are the things that, but our idea and what we read is that we are all born with all of these character traits, but they are things that needs to be developed from our childhood through our youth years and then through our adulthood. Now let's do a little comparison in here. Talents. Isaac, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have any talents? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I got a few, I think.
Okay, would you like to share?
Yeah, I'm good at playing the guitar. I can sing. I'm a creative. Yeah, those are a
Okay.
few talents of mine. I like to cook.
All right, very good. So the difference between character traits and talents are that character traits, we're all born with them. And we have the potential. The potentials, they're like hidden gems. And hence, that's where our program names Mind Treasures come from, is that we can work on them, and everybody has that capacity. But then music is not something that everybody has that capacity. I mean, some have it, they're hidden in them, and some absolutely don't. I do have that capacity. I play keyboards. My wife tried to play piano. She even went to take lessons. She came back after the first day. She says, why do I have to tap my foot? It's like, never mind. Don't worry about it. That's like the most basic thing about music. If you're questioning that, maybe you need to find a different, you got to discover a different talent in there. So yes, thank you.
Somebody said, you know, the capacity to have some of these characteristics are dependent on our culture and values, are the ones that our parents implement in us as we're growing up, and then we implement our own.
Yep, exactly. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because there's one particular one that is such a big part of our finances. Let me find it in here. I don't know if I can highlight it. There we go. Punctuality. Does anybody know what has, so let's move on to the next question. So we know that we have to develop these. They're not like our character traits. So the next question, so you have the question in there, but I want to ask what any of these have to do with finances. So Stephanie, if you can put that question in there, people can pick any of the character traits. I'll pick punctuality because that is such a cultural thing. and it plays a major role in our finances. So let's see from the audience if, Isaac, I'm going to ask you, can you pick one of these and kind of think about what does it have to do with finances?
Yeah, I would say let's do diligence. I would
Okay.
say that diligence is important to finance because if you're not diligent with your money, it's just gonna spend itself.
Yep, yep. Exactly. So diligence is like we have to look at it. We have to be thinking about how we are spending our time, our money, and all of that. Stephanie, would you like to pick one while we're waiting for someone in the audience?
We actually got a response just in time.
Yes,
So
yeah.
Maria, she's sharing that trust is a big one for her. Trusting yourself and spending, and I guess what you're spending on.
Yep, yep, exactly. That is so important. That and one of the solutions is that if I'm glad you mentioned that, Maria. If we don't trust ourselves to control our spending, that is maybe when we need help from someone. It could be from a child, from a youth, from a spouse, from a partner. Just recognizing that we don't have control of our spending, that is a big step by itself in here. So nobody has talked about punctuality, but punctuality is something that, so let's start with a cultural thing. I think outside of US and Canada and some countries in Europe, for example, definitely Germany and all that, punctuality is kind of a very loose term. I know in our culture, and I'm from Iran, in our culture, when we're invited for a gathering at 6 o'clock, that means don't come until 9 p.m. I mean, literally, that's what it means. And dinner would be served at 11 p.m. So make sure you have your afternoon snack and don't come at 6 or even 9 expecting that you're going to be fed dinner. Uh, but then punctuality is actually, as we will see if we can, once we continue with this workshop, is that is 35% of our credit score. It depends on our punctuality character traits. So I'm going to talk about a few of these character traits and what they have to do with finances. Let's see, the ones we do. Moderation, that is the basis of our budgeting, not only our money, but also our time. How well can we create a moderation between saving, investing, sharing? Did I miss one? Saving, investing, and spending. Those are the 4 categories that we do with our money in here. Let's see, the other one, thankfulness and respect. These are 2 that definitely affect our finances, and not only our finances, but also our environment. So there's a comment from Maria. I am older, having a credit card is like, let's see, my parents never applied for a credit card as we were growing up. Now that I'm older, having a credit card is like, should I spend or not? That is my question. I love those questions in there. So credit cards, which we will get into, but I'll give you a little teaser, is that credit cards are like a car. Most of the cars these days can go as fast as 150, 160 miles an hour. But obviously someone who's not trained to drive the car that fast could get into a wreck. And obviously we don't want to do that in the freeways here, even though that our minimum speed here between San Diego and LA is minimum 90. That's at least how I drive. So credit cards are actually, our credit system is an essential part of our society in our credit system. It's not just about money. When we want to rent a apartment, when we want to get a cell phone, our credit is checked. So it is very important to understand, and that is actually one of the lessons we spend usually about 2 hours on credit and credit cards, diving deep into it. It's one of the most interactive lessons that we have because we can get into, everybody can look at their credit score, their credit history, see what's happening in there, understand. And this is one that is hardly ever taught anywhere. So keep that question in there. Coming back to our character traits, I want to segue to the next topic that we're going to be talking about is patience. Stephanie, your turn. What does patience have to do with money?
Let's see. For me, it's like having patience until I see my next paycheck, or having the patience to kind of go through all of my bills and look at what I have to pay and when to segment out certain payments.
Okay, all right, very good. So patience is something that is actually the first character trait in our series that we work with, because this sets our life, not only in the material and the financial aspects, but also in a lot of different aspects in here. Recognizing, and these are some of the questions that I think we will be sharing after the series in here, is like, what is our goal? What are we trying to achieve? I mean, for most of us, we look at our time on earth as a time when we come, as a child, we are learning education, we're getting education, we're in middle school, our hormones starts to kicking, everything goes crazy, peer pressure is happening around us. It gets a little bit better by the time we're in high school, but still we're trying to figure out what we're doing. We know that now we need to start working, because all the way through middle school, our parents are providing for us. We don't have to necessarily worry about food. But then starting from high school, when we realized that, oh, maybe I can get a side job, maybe I can do something to generate a little bit more money, then we get excited. Then our desires kick in. Oh, I can work a little bit, I can have this, I can have that. I don't have to beg my parents that much more for the things that I like to have. And then the college comes in. We are now thinking that, all right, life is going to come. It's going to be either myself, spouse, a partner, a family. So I need to provide for them. And as we grow older, now we start thinking about our future, our retirement. It's like, it's going to come. We need to prepare for it. So as you can see, setting goals is quite important. Not only short-term goals of what we're trying to do now, 6 months, a year, but then also in a long term, from start to, and actually, as I mentioned, there is no even end to it. But also learning how to be patient. We were having a discussion of how to present our desires. So we set goals. So let's put that, Stephanie, can you put this question in there? What are some of your material goals from the audience? What is it that, let's start with short-term goals. What are the things that you like to achieve? It could be buying a car. It could be buying, starting a business. Let's see, what else we have? Paying off debt. Isaac, what are some of the goals that people usually have these days, besides having the latest electronics?
For me, some of the things that me and my friends set goals for: paying off debt, you know, getting a house, saving up for a house, saving up for our kids' education, college.
Yep.
Paying off credit card too. That's a big one.
Exactly.
We have some comments in the chat. We have owning a home, paying off debt, owning a home.
Yep, exactly. So these are all great goals, depending on what stage we're in life. But you know, we have these goals. I think owning a home is a house is the biggest, and maybe that's because it's fueled because of the interest rate these days. Because it's making, in one sense, it's making owning a home more affordable. But then on the other side, it is actually driving up the prices higher. So, but it is a great goal to have. It is something that it takes discipline. That's another one of our discipline. Do we have discipline in here? No, I don't. So we need to develop that character trait, because obviously owning a home is not saving about a couple of $100s or even a couple of $1,000s. We really need to get our house of finances in order, our credit, our down payment, our backup, everything needs to happen in the right place. But it is definitely a great goal to have. Let's see, Danielle says, I'm repairing and building my credit while building my business. Perfect. That is other things. Starting a business. Many people have, and this is where our creativity comes in. Many people have, which is one of our character traits, many people have a great idea to start a business. But then how do we actually implement that? How do we do it? Most of us, the idea that we have, we know how to do it, but then we don't have the other necessary skills and expertise to manage the business or personal finances. knowing how to market, especially now these days in this in our current time, that it's not the traditional marketing. We need to definitely be in the outer space, into the virtual world. So that's why these characteristics, as you can see, they're very careful in there. I want to come a little out of this because we had a question, and maybe you can repost that, Stephanie. Have you talked to in your family, to your child, to your children, to your youth, and to your spouse? Let's see how many people actually do have that conversation, because it is so important to have this conversation in our household. Then when we start a business and we have business partners, and that is something that, again, we are not born with those habits in there. So we want to know what's happening in the household. We definitely need to encourage that. It is not something like, I remember when I was growing up, there was not much of talk about finances in our household. But now with our kids, possibly it's because times have changed. I'm going to ask you, Isaac, when you were growing up, did you receive allowance?
I did. Yeah, I had chores. I had to mow
Oh.
the lawn, take care of the dishes, and if I did all that, my mom would give me $11 on Sunday.
All right, very, very cool. Stephanie, how about you?
Sorry, I was typing in the chat. Yeah, definitely. I had allowance as I was growing up from my parents for doing certain chores around the house. But I think that when I went to my grandparents' house, like our grandparents were like would spoil us.
Oh,
And
yeah.
say, oh, here's Sunny, here's Sunny. My parents like, you're ruining your whole plan.
Yep, exactly. That's why it's great to have grandparents. So let's read some of the comments here that are coming in. So one comment says, yes, constantly talk to my partner, reminding him we need to save our future. That's perfect. Let's see.
Go
ahead, Stephanie.
I think there's some earlier comments. Sometimes with my partner, I have a toddler, so not yet.
Oh.
Yes, we have explained my financial situation to our children. Yes, I do. I received $1 every Sunday for ice cream. That's funny. A lot of the time, the conversations have to do with not having or not having enough, which makes it shameful to discuss. I've talked to my children regarding finances.
Okay, that's a great point of whether we have or not. That would dictate our conversation or not. So let's start with the very basics. Our idea is that there is a big one in here. There are a couple of big ones. Let me continue and then we'll come back to this. I don't want to lose my train of thought. More and more it's becoming so. I did not have allowance, and our family was well off. My father was a doctor, so it wasn't like we didn't have it. It's just it wasn't customary at that point. I'm giving up my age. I'm 54. So it just wasn't there until I think when I was in high school. That's when I started having a regular allowance in there. But more and more these days, as we can see, our children are born straight out of their mother's belly with a device in front of them. I mean, I think in a few years, those devices are going to be implemented in their brain before they even come out. So while we cannot isolate our children from the material world that they're being born into, we can help them understand from a young age. Now, sometimes parents say, well, Alex, we don't want to brainwash our children and get them into materialism from the young age. And our response is that, well, it is there. We have to do it. We do many things to our children. One example is that brushing their teeth. As soon as they have their first tooth, we give them a brush. They don't understand it, but they brush. And then later on in life, they understand why we taught them that habit. Those that are part of any spiritual organization, we teach them how to pray. We don't tell them, we are not telling them how to pick a particular religion or path, but it's like we know that it needs to happen in there. So with finances is the same thing. At an appropriate age, from the very young ages, from probably age 3 or so, it's not a hard line, but we can begin to help our children understand with 2 aspects of finances. I'm going to switch over here. Let me see if I have the 4 categories that we have that we can start our children with, these are the 4 categories that we can do with money, and it's easy for children to understand. So we have our spending. which children don't worry about necessarily at that young age. We have our investing, which again, at a very young age, they're not necessarily getting into that. But then sharing and saving are the two aspects of finances that we can easily help our children understand from a very young age. And sharing and invest and saving do not have to be necessarily money. So if our family finances is that we don't have enough money, it can be stickers, it can be points, it can be a lot of different things that can be exchanged for something material when the right time comes. So for example, if you have a child and we don't have enough money to give as allowance, you can give stickers, and then every 100 stickers, that could mean something. So that would help the parents to save up for, let's say, $10. 100 stickers may be equal to $10. And with that $10, then the child can go buy something. That's just one example in there. Another thing that's quite important is not to tie allowance to chores, because there are only two times in our lives that we don't have any responsibility: when we are in diapers, and again when we are in diapers. So those are the only two times that we don't have. And our participants always get a kick. It's like, Mr. Alex, what do you mean when we're in diapers and when we're in diapers again? It's like, well, we know the first one, but if you don't know, sometimes as we get older, we lose control and we have to go back into diapers, and they get a kick out of that. So those are the only two times that we really don't have responsibility. Rest of our lives, we have responsibilities, maybe less, maybe more. So that's why we don't like to. Now, mowing the lawn, as Isaac would do, that is not chores. That is extra work. Washing parents' car, that is not chores. But then helping wash the dishes, taking the trash out, all of that stuff is responsibility. Fixing their bed. From very young childhood, they can learn how to be responsible for their toys. So before going to bed, they need to clean up and put their toys away. And that as they grow older, they will learn about more and more responsibility. Credit cards, let's come back a little bit to credit cards. As we talked about, credit and credit cards are an essential part of our financial society here in the US. So we have to learn ourselves and teach our children. But many parents just give a credit card, or kids go as soon as they're 18, they can go and get their own credit card. Credit card companies love it. They just give it to them because they know they're irresponsible, and they will go rack up a lot of charges. But as parents at the right age, which could be sometime in high school, we can start to help our children, our youth, understand how to work with credit cards by explaining to them and monitoring them over them. We have two boys that are in college, and we started giving them credit cards. I think they were 14 or 15. And when they started hanging around with their friends and they didn't want the parents, it's like, Mom, Dad, drop me off a block before Starbucks. Don't come near it. I'll go hang around with my friends, and then you come pick me up 2 hours later. It's like, yes, sir. So at that time, it's like, well, let's start introducing them to credit cards, but make sure that we review their expenses on the credit cards every month, so they can understand that they have to review it. Make sure that they're not going over, they're not just going and buying Starbucks for all their friends. That is not an emergency. So they need to learn all that stuff. And even now, we're still, as I mentioned, our boys are in college, we're still working with them, because one of them kind of got everything very quickly. The other one took a year for him to come on top of every month, knowing that he has to pay his credit card bill. So you see that really working with our children and youth is very important. It's really has nothing to do with how much money we have or we don't have. We can do a lot. And these are the things we'll be discussing in our sessions, in our series that hopefully we'll be scheduling. So Stephanie, do you want to share some of the comments that's been put in the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's see where we left off.
You left off at Robinson.
Yeah, there are a lot of good comments in here.
Okay, so I have a network business within my family, but very limited due to lack of people who believe in networking. I try to break it down to my family as we are not a lot, but my little one has an online uniform business to get her going. Wow, that's awesome. Danielle's a single parent. My daughter is used to hearing we don't have money for this or that. I'm teaching her that certain material things aren't always needed and to appreciate the value of hard work. Let's see, I talked to my niece about saving money to buy things she wants, hoping to teach her that you need to work hard and the value of money. I have a high school account for my boys, this is Maria, for college to get them kind of ready, but it's hard because they want to use the account for other things. That was me in high school.
That's when our desires kick in that we need to control.
Yeah. Let's see. My little one is training to set up her items in her room and like organize her toys, clean up, buy less when we go to a store. So as no toys if it is not a toy store, even though toys are all over. Her personal card has more funding and she knows that. Somebody asked a question, but to reward behavior that they're doing that they should already be doing, are we instilling behavior that would lead them to only do an exchange for external benefits? That's an interesting one.
I think let's stop there. I think we kind of answered that chores or allowance should not be tied to chores. And the discipline of not doing something, I think should not be not giving the allowance. If you are giving regular allowance, it's like that's what you do. I think these days eliminating their screen time is a much bigger consequence for not doing what they're supposed to doing. That's been the case in our household. And also for them to understand that it's not a punishment. We always really try to work with we've always tried to work with our children that you're not being punished. It's a consequence. You did something and and we always make it a learning process. Like, don't feel like, oh, you did something wrong. It is our human nature to be trying something new. We actually very much encourage them to try new things as long as they're not being detrimental. Nothing. It's like we don't encourage them, well, go try the drugs or drink and see what happens. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. But other things, it's like, try it and see what happens. If something that they did they were not supposed to do, there's other consequences, but not taking away their allowance. Go ahead, Stephanie. I think we have.
Yeah, we have one more.
Mm-hmm. You went mute.
Sorry, I have one more. I find credit scores and credit cards very frustrating at times. During this quarantine, I didn't use my card for 2 months and my score went down a few points. Last month I checked and I got the points back. It doesn't make sense. Is it like they want some type of debt?
Let's keep that as a teaser. I think that is something that will definitely go heavily into understanding. Once you understand how credit works, it's very easy. It's not. It's a mystery because we've never been taught how the system works. But it is a very easy system. It's great that you're already checking your score. A few points up and just a few quick pointers. A few points and up and down, it really doesn't make much difference. It's the big jumps that happens because of what we do or what we don't do. A lot of the points that we receive for our credit is things that we need to do, not the bad things that we haven't done, but the positive things that we need to do. So we'll keep those for the full series. I think that's the last question, right? Yeah. All right. So let's go back. I think the points that we wanted to talk about, we have about 10 minutes. So this is one of the things that this is what you're seeing on your screen is a register book that we use in classroom or with families. So because it's not only about giving allowance to our children and youth, but help them keep track of it. This is keeping track of our finances, as the question was asked earlier, is almost a forbidden topic for a lot of people. And I'll explain why. So it's so important, not only when we give allowance to our youth and children to help them record it somewhere, and then how do they split it up and what do they do with it? As I mentioned, in young ages, from like age 2 or 3, they can learn to save and share. As they grow older, investing comes into the picture, and then probably by the time they're in middle school and high schools, again, when they're hanging around with their friends, spending comes in. And as you can see, our spending is for life necessities. These are the things that we still have to pay in order to survive. Nothing else is matter of survival. Our cell phone, it's becoming kind of matter of survival, but the latest phone that hits the market, the latest iPhone, is definitely not the matter of survival in here. That's why it goes into the save. After we secure our personal basic life needs, our idea is that let's now think about, forget our own selves and think about other people. It's a very difficult concept to visualize But that is when we actually, a component of our program is a spiritual program. It's not based on any particular religion. You've already seen some of the quotes. And I'm not sure if we're going to be sharing the full handouts after the class. In every sacred writing from the Bible, from Quran, from Buddha's writing, from the Baha'i faith, they all have guidance that they all come together and how we should align our spiritual and financial life together. And part of it is that our basic life necessities can be provided for if we do everything correctly. Then once we do that, we need to turn our concentration to our neighbors, which again, it's a very difficult concept. It's like, I'm struggling to make my basic life and needs meet. How am I supposed to help other people? But as we will see, while our spending and saving are only limited to monetary aspects of life, our sharing and investing goes well beyond just monetary aspects. We can share and invest our time, our talents, our expertise, our emotional support, give blood. There's so much that we can do that will bring all of it together. And then investing, our idea of investing doesn't start with real estate and stocks. We start by having courage for a better future for our family. Often we lose sight of what we need to do for our family. We love it when we work with young couples that get married, that they feel like, well, they're coming from different backgrounds and they can continue their life just as the single life. Well, no, things changes when we become partners. Business partners, it's the same way. We need to be able to make those changes in life, make sacrifice for the future of the family and our children. For the business, often it takes sacrifice. It's not just about pouring money into the business, but it's also about sacrificing our time and a lot of different things. Investing in college, into our community. One of the aspects of our ABCs of wealth is how do we get involved in community service project? What do we do? Again, these go into the order. The order is a lot different than most financial advisors. I think everyone agrees that most financial advisors say that pay yourself first, save 10% of your earning so you have for a rainy day. We've totally reversed that. That's our idea. We love going against the norm. We have to first make sure that our livelihood are secured for. And the reason we've done that is when we work with families, so many people are willing to give up their grocery for the latest cell phone again, for having a gym membership, which absolutely does not make sense in Southern California. If you live in Chicago, yes, absolutely, you need to have gym membership. But Southern California, we definitely, I'm not saying gym membership is bad, but for most of us, just walking on the beach in the park, it's definitely possible. So that's how we are putting this. Coming back to, so this is what we do for our children. For our adults, as it was questioned earlier, it is so important to have a budget, not only a budget, because a budget gets created, it can get created once a year. But then the important thing is to be able to track and stick with that budget on a monthly basis. This is almost like a forbidden thing for many adults because of the realities that it sets. So most of us, we have a fixed income, or even if we have, like these days, if we work on Uber or something that's not fixed, we can guess how much it's going to come in. And then we have certain fixed expenses too. Rent is usually fixed. Let's see, our cell phone, our electricity, those are within a either fixed or a small range. But then things that we don't necessarily track of, how much we spend on grocery, how much we eat out, clothing, Starbucks. Starbucks has its own category in here because it's so easy to lose track of how many times we go to Starbucks and those lattes or coffees and things are costing us. So by having a worksheet, a budget, whether it's paper, whether it's in an app, whether it's a more sophisticated software, the only place that the budget does not work, I'm going to ask a question from both Stephanie and Isaac. Where do you think a lot of people, what do you think? There's a part of our body that most people try to use for keeping track of their income and expenses, and it absolutely does not work. You guys know what that is?
Can you say that one more time?
So the question is that most people try to keep track of their budget and income and expenses in a part of their body that absolutely is incapable of keeping track of monetary concepts. You got it, Stephanie. A budget cannot reside. A budget cannot reside in our head. Maybe Einstein could do it, or mathematicians, but I know I definitely cannot. It's because there's so much. I mean, even when we do our income and expenses for the month before, I look at one expense, it's like, what is this? Where did I spend? And I'm serious. It happens so often that when we don't recognize the name on the credit card statement. So keeping track of what's happening, it is so important. Since we got only 4 minutes left, let me see, I think, Stephanie, are we going to share the handouts at all? Are we going to send them the handouts? What's the plan?
Yeah, we could send those post handouts.
Okay, all right, okay. So I just want to go through them quickly. So we have the lesson that we talked about. This is the human treasures that we talked about that has all the character traits. And the handouts are both in Spanish and English. Let me go back, actually. There are questions that you can start with. I'm going to go too quickly. Some of these questions we talked about: my goals, desires and temptations, what keeps us up at night. I know for a lot of people, it's next day's food, tomorrow's rent, but those can be, according to sacred writings, those should not be. What do I do with my free time? Unfortunately, these days, when we ask people, what do you do with your free time? Binge on Netflix. There's so much more. I mean, you see so many challenges in our society that we can help, we can do something about that. Once in a while, Netflix or social media is okay, but then not all the times. So the Spanish version, these are the quotes from the different writings that you can review on your own. The character trait lesson that we didn't go into the muscle person. This is for anyone who loves to color. These character traits, these treasures are like our muscles of our mind, or we also present them as spiritual muscles in there. So you can do those exercises. We talked about different types of wealth that we have: knowledge, talents, skills, all of these, and how we can invest and share them with our family, with our community, and eventually the entire world. Don't feel like financial illiteracy is something that only exists in Southern California or US. We are working with people around the world, doing virtual. We've been doing that for the past 5 years. And we do have, our program is implemented in many different parts of the world. It is actually translated in 4 different languages now: Spanish, French, and German, and actually Portuguese. I think that's makes it 6. This is the printed version of the budget, the register book for our children and youth that can be used. When we do the series, we will actually create one of these workbooks for everyone. That's what we will be working on. And then the last sheet that we have in here is a sample income and expense money tracking table. It does not do any kind of calculations. So if you're good at math, you can use this, but at least it's something to start with. I'm going to stop here and open it up for questions. Stephanie, Isaac, if you guys have any questions, or if you want to ask the audience, and where do we go from here?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to put my screen back up. In the meantime that we are kind of wrapping this up, I'm going to put in the link to the survey. Again, as always, we will send that to you afterwards as well. But just in case you all want to start filling that out, it's in the chat. I mean, I think that was great, Alex. Like you said, there's only so much we can really cover in an hour, but I hope this was at least get you guys to start thinking about finances right now during quarantine, where we're limited on what we can actually go out and do. But you did bring up some good points. We live in Southern California. A lot of us are in LA, where we can go out and take a walk versus having a gym membership. Not that gyms are open right now anyway, but in general, or go to the beach or go on a hike, things of that sort, where we can really cut down on certain expenses. I think the credit card thing, like Tammy mentioned, that's just something that I think a lot of us deal with and struggle with. Especially like this younger population, millennials, and even older populations. I think it's just something that is prevalent and comes up time and time again. And so I hope that we can continue to do more of this programming, everyone. This was kind of just scratching the surface of finances and what that means for us, and how do we begin incorporating these kinds of conversations with our kids and as they become teenagers and go into high school and college and that sort of thing. So thank you, Alex.
Yeah,
We
sure.
have our social media handles up, our Facebook, our Instagram, Twitter, and our website. Our website is under redesign, but I think our Instagram is the most active, so definitely follow us for updates there. And then you guys have the survey, so thank you. Oh, I will say that we will be sending, let me stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone's faces for a second. We will be sharing and sending you all in the mail a little budget planner that we ordered for you all. It's a very basic one. It's not dated. That way you can use it whenever you want. But it is a series of pages that have like goals and a calendar and different to-do lists, things of that sort. So that's why we asked for your address when you first registered. So we'll be sending that out to you all hopefully by before the end of the week. So you should have that sometime next week. But if there's any other questions or comments that you might have, definitely let us know in the chat. But also, I think by now you have our contact information. If not, let me put it up one last time. And yeah, that's all I have. Anything you have, Isaac?
No, this has been really great to. Oh, is there echo? Now we're safe.
Now you're good. Now you're good.
Yeah, this has been really great. It's been good to kind of reanalyze my thinking mindset when it comes to finance. I think kind of like we discussed just a couple of minutes ago, it's unhealthy to just keep everything kind of in the mindset of like, oh, the money is going to work out this way, not have it physically like on paper or tracking things in the way that you've put in that sheet. And so I think there are so many different variables that we discussed in today's workshop that you can really take to heart and stop, remove yourself from the oh, I'm thinking about it and I'm going to act on it now. I'm going to, use these characteristics and grow in my use these characteristics in my financial life. I'm going to use this worksheet and apply it to how I spend my money at the grocery store and my income and such. So it's been really great. Thank you so much, Alex, for taking the time to walk us all through this.
You're welcome. Just one last comment is the full series. I'm not sure if you put that in the question or not, Stephanie, but the full series consists of 10 sessions. Depending on how we decide. If we decide to do it, it could be done once a week or so forth. They're about an hour each. There are assignments. Normally when we do the full series, every session has an assignment beforehand, and then we'll discuss the points that are being discussed in there and then go forward. And they're all hands-on. Like I said, every session has an assignment because it's all about, today we had something in the chat, but it's about actually doing the things, because there's an old saying that says, what we hear, we forget. What we see, we remember. But then what we actually do is that's when we learn. And then in order to teach it to other people, because part of the program is sharing what we're learning to other ones. So your first assignment is please share everything that you learn as much as you remember, because it will help you remember the topics that we talked about to people who were not in this program, in this workshop today. Share them what what's your takeaway was. And then, because that opens up a discussion, we need to have this discussion, as we mentioned, with our children, with our partners, business or family partners, and then also in the community, because personal, family, and business and community finances are not much different from each other.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Alex. We'll let you get back to the great weather in San Diego. It's a problem for us here in LA.
You might as well enjoy it, because from tomorrow it's going to get hot right through Sunday. So we're going to hunker up a little bit.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Stay tuned.